Three, two, one.
Boop. I
Oh, I
did
thought
the
that was
thing.
the beginning. Are you doing the beginning?
That's perfect. That's the intro.
That was the intro, man. After all those years of post production, we went the minimalistic route.
I made the sound though,
You did make the sound. So,
you know?
Steve, happy Friday to you, brother, man.
Yes, sir.
Want to
Oh, look
toast
at
you,
you. It's you have the cup that is sort of the beverage I'm drinking.
which is it looks like some mint in there. Is that?
Yeah. Like kind of like a mint julep. It's mint and some root beer and some George Dickel.
Oh,
So,
sweet. I
yeah.
have a copper mug full of Gosling's ginger beer.
There you
Um,
go.
Trisha and I celebrated our 7th anniversary on Tuesday, and it's the copper anniversary.
Yeah.
I
Congrats.
lad.
Right? The copper.
And you pointed out before we got on that our audience might notice that I have a propeller for a head,
Yeah, yeah. It's
the
good.
propeller
I
head.
like it. And what's the other thing in is that a chain?
It's a chain. It's a
Hmm.
power cable to a light.
Got it.
Yeah, man.
Right. I'm
Right.
gonna just preface this with because the mint is chopped up in there, I'm
Hmm.
gonna be chewing on bits of mint throughout this podcast. So
So you're
it's
you're
just
going to be chewing cud.
yeah, just a little that
Little.
kind of thing.
Okay. Word.
Okay.
Good. Well, dude, how was your week?
It's good. It's interesting. I've been kind of wrestling with some stuff in the startup world. There are decisions one needs to make, and the decisions are sort of like bets, and so I've been wrestling with some of those decisions, and it's always unclear. You never know what the right bet is. There's no sure shot. But this year, with the education being just so topsy turvy, and each teacher or administrator or education expert that I talk to has like a completely different sort of viewpoint, and it's they're all correct and they're all incorrect, and nobody knows anything, so it's just to make bets in that realm is kind of like it's always like a roulette table or something, except this is like you're in the dark, and the dealer is like an octopus, and there's like 8 balls, but they're not any of them on the table. So that's
Whoa.
that's what we're playing.
And so for anybody who's like just kind of tuning in and doesn't know the background, so your company, Light the Music, there you go, is
Plug. Woo!
creativity and music education, and you've been working with a variety of different schools for several years, and then last year obviously it got really insane. So you're referring to the looking for solutions and ideas in that space is like kind of what is it, betting with an octopus as the dealer, and that
Yeah.
octopus doesn't put the balls on the table.
Yeah, it's just like there's a ball on the table, and then suddenly the octopus reaches out, and the ball's gone, and it's like, wait,
Right.
what happened? And he's like, now you teach concurrently, so it's been crazy. It's
Always
been
watch out for the dishonest ball dealer.
but the I, I must say, while we talk about this, though, that teachers and administrators and all the people in that realm have been kind of amazing. Like if whoever's listening to this, if you have a chance to thank a teacher, or make the effort to reach out and thank a teacher, because they've done amazing work in really difficult situation.
Word. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole other conversation. We should actually, I'm going to make a note. We should talk about education down the road. Put it in the computer here. Let me put it in the database.
Right.
The database here. Um, Word. Well, that's cool. I mean, super
Hmm.
interesting. Today
Yep.
we went and picked strawberries. Took
Oof.
Vera, who's 5.5, and I had a great moment because she's really been into Joan Jett lately. Like
Oh,
she's a voracious consumer of music, my child, and just
nice.
when you see a 5-year-old who's like, it's her job to like learn that stuff, right? She'll listen to something and she's just chewing on the melody and just the lyrics, and I'm like, man, you're catching things that I'm not catching, because it's like your life is depending on it in your mind right now. It's like, I'm gonna get this. But yeah, so Joan Jett's we were rocking to some Joan Jett, and she's like
Oh,
figured out how to do the like like getting her
Mhm.
hands. And when she was like 4, she was like trying to figure out how the fingers worked. And she's back here rocking out. And we started listening to Crimson and Clover.
Oh yeah.
Crimson and Clover. And she's like, Dad, I like this a lot. She's like, it's like a spa. It sounds like you should be in a spa because it's so relaxing. And I'm like,
Mm.
word.
Okay.
Word.
Yeah,
Project
yeah.
spa music to my child.
Yeah. It's funny when Lily was about that age, I remember I had to work this gig I was working was making something that sounded kind of like screamo music for some commercial. It was, some edgy kind of thing, and the reference music was like this screamo stuff. And I wasn't really having a good time with it. It's not really my cup of tea, that sort of screaming sound that the lead vocalist is making. And Lily heard it, and she was kind of laughing, and like I was like, "Do you like this?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, I love it." And I was like, "Why?" And she was like, "Cause they're so happy," and like that was how she interpreted the like the "Wah!" It's like pure joy, like just utter ecstasy, just so there you go.
Word, Steve.
I didn't know that about screamo.
That's so awesome, dude.
Mm.
So, brother, let's switch gears here a little bit and let's talk a little bit about the Festy experience.
Indeed.
Um,
Indeed. What
and
is this Festy?
so we talked about it last week. And so right now, obviously, these conversations, are for anybody, but they're a lot for our core fans who are starting to pay attention that we're doing things. June 5th, which is a Saturday, we're playing the Festy experience at Chisholm Vineyards in Charlottesville. Um, the Festy has been a really cool boutique lifestyle music festival in Charlottesville, started by Michael Allenby. And last year with the pandemic, he had to change his game up because having 5,000 people get together was not in the cards anymore. And he started this festival that was like taking basically one band that would play the Festy, set them up outside at a really great location that has, hospitality already in place, and sell tickets by the table, right? Call them pods, give people space, 2, 4, and 6 people pods, and give people an intimate outdoor experience with their favorite band. And you and I and Nate talked about this, and Charlottesville is always like just kind of one of our hometowns, and so we figured it would be really cool to start there. And it's going really well. And I think one thing that I wanted to bring up is first, get your ticket if you're going to get one, because we're probably 3/4 of the way being sold out. And this has brought up a lot of questions around what's it like to go out now, right? And even the way the tickets are sold, where there's some 6 people pods, you have to like organize to get those people together, and got to make rides and all that stuff. So it's all like new again. So I'm pretty stoked, and I'm hoping that people are going to come visit us, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, young man.
Well, first of all, it's an everything concert, so that's the important thing to be really clear about. I've had some people ask, like, is it like, are we playing a festival? And
Right,
it's called Festy because that's where it came from, but it's an everything concert. It's us
right.
playing, and we are, as we have always done in the past. We're going to bring up some people on stage.
Yeah.
One of them from our past, Doug Wanamaker, wonderful, amazing, wicked keyboard player who actually toured with us. And then Charles Owens, who is a saxophone, etc. monster in the Charlottesville area. And Nate and I have played with him, and he's played with everybody. And so we're going to kind of get into that interesting stuff that uh, maybe some of our fans remember us for, that is always kind of the fun stuff too, like when you throw stuff up into the wind and see what happens. So there's that important thing. Number 2 important thing is that I think we've already sold like a bunch of tickets. And so if you're thinking about coming, or if you know somebody that might want to come, this is the time to get on those tickets. And then 3 is if number 3 is if you can't make the show, they are doing a stream, a live stream, and I think the live stream is it's got some interesting things to it as well. And so
Yeah.
and I think it's $10 for the live
10
stream, right?
bucks. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So So even if you're in Albuquerque, then you can get up on the live stream and kind of join in on the fun and just like when we played Wilson Hall in the mid 90s, you can be like up in the internets with the everythings.
Well done. Wow,
Woot,
you totally brought the like mid 90s internet tour.
woot, woot.
We should talk about at some stage.
Yeah. Make a note.
Make a note, put it in the database for conversations. The internet tour. Yeah, no, that's cool. And thanks for mentioning that, people have had questions about the format. Like, yeah, it is an everything show and it's our first show back as everything. And we're psyched.
What's our second show back?
We don't know yet. We don't
Is
know
the
yet, but
is that barn thing is that not on the is that not firmed up? And then there's the DC
firmed
place.
up, but it's a secret show, Steve.
I didn't say anything about anything.
That's
I'm
right.
talking about like nothing.
Yeah, there's a secret show that we're working on for the fall.
That's right.
We'll talk about later.
Okay.
We don't know if we're going to do something this summer here on the Outer Banks. We're
Right.
obligated. But we did just announce publicly that we will be playing at the Hamilton in Washington, D.C. on October the 16th. Currently, the Hamilton, I think, is right now, if you do a show inside, there's like 126 capacity, and that room holds about 700. They're expecting that capacity to go up over the summer. And, we discussed this as a band, obviously, and, got a lot of feedback that probably mid-October would be okay to have an inside show. We're going to keep our ear to the ground for safety. We're going to keep our ear to the ground for like how big it's going to be. But, we just really wanted to lean into the DC scenario and like, try to make it happen. So October 16th, put it on your calendar, pencil it in.
And stay tuned. There are some other shows that are sort of, with all of this pandemic stuff, we've just kind of been, playing stuff by ear and making sure it feels right. That we don't want to do anything that's dangerous or rash or gets anybody sick. And so we've been trying to be real careful about it. That said, as things are starting to open up a little bit and things are a little safer, then we are chomping at the bit to play some shows and to reconnect with people and do that thing. So yeah.
And the good thing, we're gonna have a horn section for the
Woot.
Hamilton.
That's that opens up a whole different little chapter of set list
Yes,
stuff,
sir.
like the horns is like, okay, then if so, then man, but not to, well, I don't think we're discussing that. That's not on the agenda, not on the docket.
So, well, I mean, we can do
Wouldn't
it
be
if we
prudent.
want. Yeah, dude.
We can.
And you know what? You totally missed something, Steve. You missed something that's different about this week's podcast. Hmm?
Oh, you've got a new mic.
I got an SM7.
Yeah. Now we're SM7 squared.
Yeah, it's going to be like the audio is going to be like this. It's going to be smooth as butter.
People are going to notice.
You're going to notice the consistency.
People are going to be like, wow, what did you guys do?
How you guys are now consistent.
Love the consistency, guys. Keep it up.
Word. So the Hamilton, October 16th, put it on your calendar, yo. So Steve, the other thing I want to talk about is the E-Lab.
Yeah, that's the thing. That is the thing.
And I think maybe this is a rich little scenario to get into. And so one of the things that, we've been talking about obviously is like how to make stuff, right? And from when we were young lads, it was like, you get your songs together and you go in the studio and you make an album, and you make a CD and you go out and sell it and people consume it and buy it and you go on the road and you get paid and all that stuff. And maybe there's a hit, maybe there's not. And like now everything's so fluid that like all bets are off and all bets are on at the same time. And, we talked about at the beginning of the year of like, well, how can we move forward as a creative trio to make stuff, ideally to get in the studio and like crush finished work and really make those massive gestures of awesomeness, but along the way with the tools to like have fun.
Yeah, and you know that there's that model that you're talking about, but there's also the way that we made music on a Porta Studio
Yep.
4-track cassette recorder. So like, you know,
Yep.
you put a cassette tape in there and it records 4 tracks, and then you can like bounce tracks like the Beatles used to do. And we, correct me if I'm wrong, we definitely recorded songs like that. We
Yep.
had all kinds of craziness that we did with the Porta Studio, the original recording device that we used. And I believe that led to our first release, which was a cassette tape that we talk about creativity. We took fabric paint and had like I think the you know the cassette covers were like just a white card with like an E colon and maybe the whatever the
Oh yeah.
song, and then we put like fabric paint on them, spread them out on the floor, and just did like this like you know little collagey thing with each one. So each one was its own unique special cassette.
Would that make those cassettes bespoke?
Bespoke and collector's items.
Oh yeah. So we did that by hand. I remember that. It
Yeah.
was glow in the dark era. Yeah, we did that on that
Yeah.
the Glenn Walton recorded us on the 8-track in the basement of
Oh,
the Egypt
that.
House. Was that in
Right.
Annandale?
Uh-huh.
Fairfax.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, on the edge, but yeah,
So yeah, dude.
that's what that was. And the night that we did that, we listened to the Beastie Boys' Paul's Boutique for the first time. That was it had just come out and we had that on the speakers as we made our bespoke album covers. So like that's cool. That's just bona fide right there.
Yeah, but so like, and so let's the spirit of the creativity, right? Where
Right.
now the tools are you can make stuff as you go, like all the time, and get it to people. And so you had sent you and Nate got together and we're working on just a jam of All's Quiet, right? Where you were reintroducing the parts and working with them in loops, and Nate was doing his thing, and then you got creative on the video stuff, and then you sent it to me, and we've been trying to figure out how to like just stay in touch with people, and it was like, oh well, this is like we're in the lab making stuff and we want to share like those moments, right?
Yeah.
That's like
And
a big part of what you're about right now.
yeah, and it's there's a couple things happening. There's first of all, it's just the experience of that, like the something interesting happening. It's like, you know, that's right now with the technology the way it is and with social media the way it is, we have the ability to like kind of capture that experience and then like, you know, put it out, and it doesn't have to be perfect and it doesn't have to be polished and all of that stuff. So so that's one piece of it. And then the other piece is for me, I mean for all of us, but this is, you know, I'll speak to my personal experience with it. As we've kind of opened up the book of everything songs and recordings and the way we used to play these songs, et cetera, there's been some stuff that's like we don't even need to like go there ever again. So
Right.
that's one type of experience. And then there's another one where it's like, there's really something good to that, but like, but some of it just didn't stand the test of time. And then there's other stuff that like is, you know, stood the test of time, sounds great, can't wait to play it again, you know? And so especially in that middle category, it's been really fun to kind of like open up those the things that are good in those songs and just kind of play with it and say, okay, well, let's recontextualize it. Let's put it into 2021 and the way that we play now and what feels right and what sounds good to us. And so that's I've just kind of been on this mission because first of all, it's fun, but second of all, it's I think it's helpful for me to be first of all reacquainting myself with the songs, but also like if there are ways to find, you know, new grooves for stuff and we did this with the shows that we've already played, you know, the 2 years ago shows that like even the almost everything shows where it was like, hey, we're not the same people that we were 25 years ago. And so putting this music into a bit of a different feel or a different you know different parts come out in different ways and all that and so it's just been like like this little, a lab is a perfect word for it, because it's just kind of experimenting with stuff. And sometimes stuff like is like, nah, that doesn't work, and that's fine, because that's just part of that process.
Yeah, totally. And I think that like the other thing too is just the multimedia aspect. Like me, I get on my digital apps at midnight and make crazy stuff and
Yeah.
visual. And I think that, you know, I think the long-term everything fans sort of knew what we were about, and embraced the like winding road of creativity, but and so when you look at the total work, the thing that it really was like an alpha space, right? Where it's like, we're making a bunch of stuff and it was hard to bottle, right? Like it had moments and, there were certain shows that stood out and we had a consistent thing as a band. And Supernatural was probably the most bottled version of it in album. And, then, People Are Moving was actually the next iteration of that. And it also had a lot of really great focus to it. But there was just this like element of just like not quite anything goes, but let's just say a lot goes, And so I think the E-Lab is a really cool bucket to just kind of experiment and have fun and just sort of let people know that like, this is what life is like in the creative zone and it's cool, man. I'm stoked about it.
Yeah, and it ties into like what we're really trying to do with Like the Music too, which is creativity is just there's so many good things about creativity and empowering students to create and empowering anybody to create really, and especially in music. It's like magic, and we talked a little bit about this in the last podcast, where it's like you're conjuring something up, and it's a really amazing, joyful, expressive thing to create. So it's that's just, like I feel like, because Like the Music is my company, and because it's what I'm doing, I need to walk that talk. I need to be a creator and to like keep doing that. And every time I do it, I learn something. And
Yeah.
so there's that. But yeah, like the band Everything, I think we had sort of this devilish impulse to really live up to the name, to really like explore the limits of all kinds of things, just like musically and experientially and all of that stuff. Like I think we were just that was part of it, and I think it begs a question, which is like, what did fans hold on to? Like you're
Thistle.
right. I mean, it's I'd be really curious to like, because it's kind of like the story of people describing the elephant. Like I think each fan would say, oh well, I loved the energy and the horns, and then another fan would be like, oh man, they rocked really hard, and another fan would be like, oh, their drummer was just like, a powerhouse, and so all of these different aspects of what we were doing, but like you said, we moved around an enormous amount. Like if you were to describe, not just throughout the years, like to like take a snapshot of the band and use like no more than 10 words to describe us musically and sort of what we were doing, like that moved all around. But even in the course of like a show, like we were all over the map.
Right.
Like we would literally go from like a salsa merengue kind of thing into like basically like heavy metal, like grungy, dirty, just crazy, and like and back, and there were other bands that were doing that, and there are other bands that have done that. But looking back on it, it's just like like what's the thing that, like that fans, were there for, or what's that, or maybe it is that, maybe it's that, like, well, I don't know what's going to happen next. That's kind of fun.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that energy, as you were talking, I was thinking about like I think it's just hard to describe to people the adventures that we had because of who we were. I mean, just think about like we would play the like Grateful Dead fests, like in
Right.
Virginia and Ohio and like weird parts of Pennsylvania, and it would be like, Phil Lesh and Friends or opening for Rat Dog or some stuff where it's like we're not, I mean, we could extend the music, but we're not really
Mhm.
a jam band. but we could jam enough and we were
Right.
crazy enough. And then we would show up and people would be like, okay, all right, this, like, whatever this is. And it would be like, totally like get that going on. And then it would be like, we could totally, like when Hooch was blowing up and we were playing all those pop stations festivals. And so I don't know if anybody's listening that doesn't know about the radio game, but there was a whole thing where it was like, it wasn't pay to play, but you would play a festival for a radio station in order for them to like go harder on your single, right? And as Hooch changed formats like the band did, and we ended up in this like top 40 format, we were like, I mean, you remember we were like basically playing shows with Jordan, was it McKnight, Jordan Knight, what's his name, the dude from New Kids on the Block, and then Joey McIntyre from New Kids on the Block. Remember those guys were on like all these bills with us, and like NSYNC, and we were playing with all these like pop bands and like
what was the Destiny's Child?
Totally.
We played, I mean, if it's a great look at it, because like the bands that we have shared stages with, that we've shared bills with, everything from like Maceo Parker to Tribe Called Quest or De La Soul to like Godsmack to Destiny's Child or In Sync or Coolio. I mean, it's just like, and then there's like Fish or Phil Lesh and Friends, and like how do you? I mean, that like I wonder if there's another band that has opened up for such a diverse group of bands, because it's like that. It just kind of really gives such a clear picture of how like schizophrenic we were.
Yeah, dude.
And then the like somewhat poignant part of that is that like you especially, we all, but you especially were like trying to like sort of channel that and like make that into something like to lead that to a like the promised land, and yet in the moment it was just like we did some crazy stuff and it was just all over the map.
Totally. Yeah, it was a giant creative petri dish, right? And I think one of the things that we've talked about that I'm really stoked about is that energy is still in the mix. And so back to the E-Lab, the E-Lab is kind of like a place to like express some of that with the three of us who like, I mean, just think about how much media and music we've consumed. Like and the adventures that we've had and the amount of playing that we've had. And I think we mentioned this last week, but just now to like have a focus on it and have outlets for like, okay, well, here's like Crazy Zone, right? Where you're stepping in here. And there's also an element of like getting in shape again, right?
Yeah.
Like playing shows again. And we're like stepping back out, getting in shape with the creativity. Like what's that process, right? So it's like doing it and just getting that churn going and getting better. And then eventually it's going to be like, okay, now we're going deeper and now we're going deeper. So that's like, I don't know, man. That's a cool thing because like, like when you're cooking a soup with a ton of elements, it takes a long time for it to settle down into a unified dish.
Right.
Unified soup.
Unified Soup. That's our new album. Thank you. We are Unified Soup.
Did we have a robot to do that?
Yeah, I think it feels robotic. It feels pretty electronic, Unified Soup.
Dude, when you were talking about all those different experiences we had, I was thinking about one in particular when we played that festival in Missouri. And there were two stages. Remember, it was like the 2-stage thing. We got all these bands, and we went out on the stage immediately after Monster Magnet played. And if you remembered, the guy from Monster Magnet, like they're a heavy band, and it was a big, like gnarly alternative crowd at that old drive-in theater, and it was like dust everywhere, and it was like, Monster Magnet was like throwing down, and the dude burned his guitar at the end, right? So there's a fire on stage. And I remembered like, the set list game is like it was like basically like, I don't know, being like some head of something that you don't want to be, like a collective. And it would be like someone would do the set list for like a year, and then they just got sick of like dealing with everybody and then pass it off. And I don't know who was doing the set list, but we decided to come out with Ladybug. You remember that?
Great choice.
And it's like, and I remember going out in like pair of like plaid pants and like looking at, and we come out and this like out of the smoke, comes this rock about the size of my fist. And I see like, oh, and it lands and it bounces right at the edge of my foot and it comes and rests on my foot. And I just turned around. I was like, we got to pick it up.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That,
Remember that, dude?
yeah, all of that. Yeah. It was funny because when Hooch was on the radio, it started off on modern rock
Right.
radio. And, it has to, because you can't go from pop to modern rock.
Right.
You can only go from modern rock to pop, because it's not cool after it's been on pop. But the shows that we played and the, what we were doing at that time stylistically, so that version of everything was very kind of posh and suits and fancy clothes and like, we were like kind of like a Duran Duranish kind of thing where we were trying to be like, which, awesome. But for a modern rock show, like there was, it was like every time we were playing, we were playing with these other bands that were just like so dirty and heavy and like, yeah, it was, those were difficult shows. A lot of them were like, and the thing that we always tried to do though was like, well, how can we like get closer to that? We're everything. We can like, we don't have to be, all sweet and melodic and nice. And so, yeah, we would kind of try and do that. It was one of those shows was our gear had gotten lost somewhere in transit, and I got to play a Les Paul for the first time, and that was like, oh, that's helpful. I don't have a Stratocaster anymore. I've got a Les Paul. It's got a little.
What gig was that?
I don't know. It was like Midwest. I want to say like Indiana or Kentucky or something like that. And like none of our gear showed up. What's that?
Is Kentucky considered the Midwest, or is that still kind of
it's Eastern. Yeah.
It's the East. It's east of the Mississippi.
Eastern, Southern, Midwest. But wherever it was like our stuff wasn't there. And so we had to like borrow stuff and yeah. I don't know. That the idea of the lab, back to the lab though, is that one of the things that really attracts me to when I'm seeing other creators do stuff is authenticity.
Right.
And I think one of the things that's happened in the last 10 or so years has been that bands that actually, like bands and artists and musicians that actually kick butt, like that actually can play and they've really had this opportunity to carve that out. And so you can make like a little home recording like Wolfpack does, or like these kind of bands that just do it on the fly, and it doesn't have to look good, and it's live. It's actually live. They're not faking it. And there's other bands that fake it, that they'll like look like they're doing that, and yet it's like a studio recording, and you're like, wait a second, that's not matching up to what what they're actually doing there. But I think people have become sensitive to that, and I'm certainly sensitive to that, where I love to see that like real talent, and that like it's not easy to play really well and to play really well together and to like make that all sound good in that moment. That's high level, chops there. So that's I love seeing that.
Yeah, and also too, I think just to have the opportunity of like working on new sounds, right? I mean, it's easy to like, I mean, when the thing you did with the reel the other day with just breaking out that piano part, I'm like, yeah,
Right.
because we had 6 guys playing, we were active. It was rare that like a piece of the song would just open up, right? And it's like, oh, there's just one thing going on. It'd be like, well, there's one thing in a pylon.
Yeah.
Which was exciting, right? It's like, not to disparage that. I mean, because it was like I listened to like one of our New Year's shows from the Bayou, and it was just like a freight train of giganticness.
Yeah.
Right. It was just like, wow, that is a big old beast coming at you with a lot of things that you can't deny. And that was like, and it's funny because it's like back to like the creativity. So it's like that schizophrenia of like vision, but then just the sheer will of like wanting to make it happen, right? Like think about all those early shows in like the Tidewater area where we'd show up to a bar that got sold us right? They were like, yeah, this band's up and coming, and we come rolling in. And like, I mean, you remember that one time that Reinhardt strapped bar stools on and was walking around with his trombone with bar stools on. And like, there'd probably be like, I don't know, 50 people in the bar to begin with.
Yeah.
And at the end of the night, there's 10.
Yeah.
And at the end of that those 10 people became super fans, right? And
Right.
it was like 12 stuck around. And it was like, but it was literally the art of like, you know, culling the audience in the most ruthless manner of just out of controlness. Like you're gonna have to make a choice right now. You're either in or out, and like 80%
Right.
of people were like, or 90% are like, I don't
Yeah.
know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
We
know,
just were coming out for some drinks. We didn't, we can't handle all that.
for this. Yeah, man. But that's that
Good
energy,
times.
dude, and it's still here.
Yeah.
We're still in it, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And there's something to that the fearlessness of that, and to go there is just a wonderful sort of artistic thing, to that freedom, is really what it comes down to, is you are only truly free if you are like, if you're jumping into that with, just like, all right, let's see what happens. So yeah.
So since we're on the road, Steve, I was gonna ask you a question.
Mm,
If
yeah.
I say the phrase
Mm.
ride like worms and live like dogs, tell me about it.
Yes, that's in the first chapter of my book.
Oh,
So the first chapter, the story starts out as the most epic day that we ever had, which was, we played in Virginia Beach at the Neptune Fest, had a police escort straight out onto the tarmac in Virginia Beach, the airport there, to a Learjet to Oklahoma, played a second show. Limos met us on the tarmac. That, like, just this amazing level of for us, like, that was just the peak. And and then, like, in there somewhere, I contrast that with because when you get on the Learjet, at least for us, there's got to be a way that they do this for the fancy people. But for us, it was like, oh, we can't turn it on until, like, you got to put all your gear on there. And it was a really hot day, and this Learjet's just sitting out on the tarmac. It was hot, and so we get into the most posh thing that we've ever been in, and it's like 120 degrees in there, and we're already sweating because we're wearing our fancy suits, and we just played a show, and we just ran to the airport, and and we're sitting there, like, sweating. And I think it was you that, like, just kind of, we reminisced for a second about, like, the box truck that we had, which was an oven. It was literally an oven with wheels on it, because in the summertime, driving to a beach show, you're in a metal box and you're stopped in traffic on, like, 64. And you're like, we bought a a thermometer, like, that you have outside in your garden, a big round one, and put that up in the truck, and it pegged, like, it went up to like 115 or something, and it just pegged, and we were like, oh, okay, great,
I thought it
that's
was
good to know.
120, man. I tried it
Yeah,
so
120.
bad, and I'm like, I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was not healthy.
So that was so we're in this metal box, stopped in traffic on like a 100-degree day, and the sun's beating down on this metal box on the pavement. And so we, like, are in our underwear, like, just sweating, kind of like in this kind of like stupor. And eventually that became known as riding like dogs, because, like, like when it's really hot, just like a dog, like, you're just
Oh,
kind of
you
sitting
ride
there
like
panting.
dogs and live like worms? No, I thought it was ride like
Oh yeah,
worms.
living like dogs. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I
It's so
think you're right.
hard. No, yeah, because the worms was like when it got cold and we'd sleep
Right.
in
So
sleeping bags.
on the other hand, on the other side of the calendar, in the wintertime, it's a metal box. It like, it's a wonderful, it transmits the temperature from outside wonderfully into the inside. And so yeah, it's like, 15 degrees outside. And so what we would do is, like, have all our clothes and our coats on and our sleeping bags, and be in our sleeping bags. And so we're all, like, riding like worms. And so that was yeah, live like a dog, ride like a worm. That was, like,
That's what it is,
yeah.
dude. Yeah, do you remember? So like, it was especially like, it was like the Ocean City Virginia Beach, Outer Banks tour. And it
Yeah.
was like, and we called, like, it would get so hot back there, you would just pass out in your sweat. And we
Right.
called it, he's like, who's going back, and it's going into stasis. Remember that?
Jesus. uh like it instead of what it actually was, it's like in like some like, futuristic movie or something. Oh, we're in stasis. And then you're like, and then you get to wherever you are, and then you come out of stasis and you're just like a bit out of sorts.
Oh,
Oof.
how
Yeah.
about that, dude? I didn't know it was the first chapter in your book, Steve. I feel very lucky.
Well, it's the book is about like sort of just my path and sort of how I've used creativity and music and entrepreneurship to like just kind of like create a path, to make a living for 30 years. And so I thought to start kind of with a splash of just like, here's the most epic day ever. Put yourself in my shoes and walk through this with me.
Yeah, that was the double booking. So another little
Mm,
radio thing is that, you know, these festivals were currency for your band, if you're a label person, for your band song to go more. So they didn't want to ever upset a radio station. And so somebody at the label accidentally booked us at the Neptune Festival in Virginia Beach and the Rock Festival in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And they were like, well, we can't upset them. So we're going to throw the 15 grand down on the Learjet. And if I seem to remember that the Neptune Festival was on the boardwalk and we opened for Asia.
I think that was a different Neptune festival because
Was
that
it?
was the whole like stay in the chips
Yeah, the
episode.
Asia one was
Yeah.
the Stand of the Chips. Is that a different one?
Yeah. I think it's a different one. We played Neptune Festival a bunch since we were from Virginia Beach. Not really, but we played there a lot.
We
But
played a lot.
but I think it was a different one because we were supposed to headline that Neptune Festival because we
Right.
had the song on the radio and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
no, the Asia one was definitely a different one because it was evening time. Like they went on in the evening, and
Right.
that's a great story of like you think you're getting to be kind of a hot shot, and then these like and then you're opening up for Asia, and these radio people are like trying to make it like the best experience for Asia. Asia was probably difficult to deal with, and so these radio people were certainly on point, and we couldn't even be like on the sidewalk as we were trying to get our gear out of the way and all that stuff. We had to be in the chips off the sidewalk so that Asia had like full control of the sidewalk.
Yeah, and there was like hardly any room. So there's like little shrubs with mulch, right? And
Yeah.
you're like, we're basically like, there's no room to move. And that girl's just like, can you guys just go stand in the chips?
Stay in the chips.
Stay in the chips. Stand in the chips. So it's like really upset about it. And I'm sure Asia
Yeah.
didn't really care at all.
Probably not. Yeah.
It's
There's that.
dude, so
Maybe
awesome.
they did though. Maybe they were like, keep that band in the chips.
Yeah. And the irony was just like, oh my God, we're going to get a private jet. We've arrived. And we're like, what is there, 8 of us on the road, 9 of us? And we're not a small band. And like the equipment didn't even fit in the jet. It had to go in the actual cabin with us. And I remembered like sitting like this with my feet up on a cooler, right? Because I think that's where they had the drinks and stuff. And they couldn't turn the AC on, like you mentioned, because like until they turned the jet on, they couldn't turn the AC on. So we sat on the tarmac with like it being like 115 degrees in there, and we're all like barely fitting in this thing. And it was like the Learjet like really did not want to cut off the ground. I mean, it was like one of those things where you're like, I don't think this is designed for this. Like packed up on your equipment, just like the box truck. And it's like, and do you remember the limo that took us from the Neptune Fest to the jet? That one that was like from like 1978.
I don't remember that. I thought we were in just a van to get to but the limos that met us in Oklahoma were like Great Gatsby, like,
Oh yeah.
Holy mackin'.
Yeah, dude. And that was when, it's like I call it the Learjet rule, where like, if you fly to a gig in a private jet, you're automatically going to have more juice on stage. And like showed up. And because we were technically late to that festival, they had no choice but to put us on second to last, right before Candlebox.
Yeah.
So we went on right after Third Eye Blind. And so we basically got put in a slot that we like our career, like we weren't really there. But with a festival, it's really like people are just ready to throw down. And if you can bring the heat in the moment in the festival vibe, like you're good to go. And like I remember for me, that was like, I loved that stuff, man. Like I just like time slowed down for me. Like you remember everybody was like throwing things at me, and I just was like catching it, and I was like, hey, yeah, here's a bra, here's a rock, here's a
that show That show was epic. I mean, Matt Pinfield introduced us. The sun had just gone down. It was the perfect time to play. It was 30 something thousand people. You couldn't see the back of the crowd. I mean, that it was just like it was perfect. That night was just like amazing. That day, that 24 hours was just like, like epic.
More,
Peak.
more of this, please.
Yeah. But the thing that I wanted to when you asked me like a road experience, I was thinking about the lab, and I remember we got snowed in Niagara Falls. I think we were supposed to go across the border and play a show in Canada, I believe, maybe Toronto or something like that. But there was this blizzard, massive blizzard, and like couldn't even like get out of the hotel. Like it just like just dumped. And so we were in the hotel, and it was in the era where we had some kind of technology that we were bringing with us for recording, like maybe a laptop or something.
That player, or it was the 8-track cassette.
I think it was something a little more sophisticated. I remember having like seeing it on the screen kind of ability to work with it, like some kind of DAW, I think. I'm not sure. But like we were able to record stuff, and that was when we recorded Come On
Yeah.
and something else. I couldn't remember the other one that we recorded, but like we actually like holed up in the hotel room. There wasn't anything else to do, and recorded stuff, like made stuff, and like in this little lab, snowed in lab experience, and come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
Oh,
Yeah, that came out of that. I think that was
tonight we're gonna crash it. We're gonna
mm,
belly up to the bar. We're gonna crash it. Great Nate
mm,
melody.
mm-hmm.
The Nate Brown melody. We should do
Yeah.
that one. That should be on the list.
Well, and that's the other thing about the lab that I really like is that and this is what we did in E3, which was the cover band that me and Nate and then Andy Waldeck from Egypt and Earth to Andy spent like a dozen years doing, and such fun, and tons and tons of music that we made. But what we would do is when everything would get going at a party,
Right.
then you like the dance floor is going, and you're like, okay, we got you. We know what you like now, right? Different nights it was different things, but like whenever you found that thing, it was like, okay, cool. And then everything after that is somehow connected to that, which is like kind of the opposite of what everything did. Like we once we found that out, then we can play Motown, or we can play something funky, or we can play wagon wheel. It doesn't matter. Like it's all going to be like in that, like that right kind of pocket.
Right.
And at the same time, there's always people that come up, and they're like, hey, can you do like, whatever, Lady in Red, or can you do like any kind of like random thing, and people somehow, often there's some sort of complete dichotomy between what's actually happening on the stage and what the request is. It's like, you guys are super funky. Can you do like, Barry Manilow? So, so what we ended up doing with E3 was kind of this like this practice. And it was like, yeah, of course we can, and we would either in the moment just immediately be like, okay, Barry Manilow, and we're playing like let's say we're playing My Girl, and it's boom 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 boom. Her name was Lola. She was a showgirl, and we would just weave it in,
Right.
and it would go as long as we could, like the chord changes or the whatever, like but like we would just weave that little bit in. And I think the connection to the lab and what we're doing now is that I think we may never play Come On as a song as a band ever again, but I think it's kind of fun to like weave that stuff in and just kind of play with that. And so these little grooves and little things, these little meme kind of materials, these motifs that we're playing around with in the lab, I think they can show up uh in our shows in that same way, and so playing with them and kind of like just being like familiar with them, having those under our fingers is a way to like kind of like have them at the ready for that stuff.
Why can't we play that song again, Steve? Why can't we
Never.
Finish it,
ever. Contractual.
Steve.
No.
Dude, so hey, I was thinking about like it would be cool to have other people join us
Yes.
on this in these conversations as well. And I was
Yeah.
who do you want to talk to? We got to get Nate on here, obviously.
I mean, Nate's the like, we're doing ourselves a huge disservice if we don't start with Nate. Nate's we just gotta like, if he can do it on this time,
Yeah,
then great. And if not, then we gotta like find a time that Nate can do it.
yeah.
But then from there, I mean, there's an enormous list. And again, like I think it would be really fun to kind of see what our fans would like to see. And but I think starting with some of the core people, you know, that have been with us and that are doing really interesting things still. And like, just, I think this blend of what we're doing, which is talking about stuff that's happening now, reflecting back, just kind of finding meaning in all of that, I think is super fun. So yeah, like I'd love to have Randy on here. I'd love to have uh Kevin King on here. I mean, just the list goes on. Like, where do you want to start?
Dude, I reached out to Smirnicky over in,
Yeah,
he's living in Dundee, Scotland, and now he's actually managing a bunch of bands over there and doing some stuff. And I'd love to get him on. We'd have to do it in the morning our time though, because he's on Scottish time.
yeah, right.
Um,
I mean, I don't know if we can do it before the Festy show, but like it'd be really fun to get Allenby on because like he has such a specific point of view about
right?
like what this show is, this
Yeah.
this everything show at Festy, and the why behind that, and really, I I won't do him a justice sort of, you know, expressing the way he expressed it, but like there's a better way to do a live concert. There's a better way to do a music festival. There's like the things that we've learned in the pandemic, the lessons, there's just a way to like tailor the experience so much better to the people that are there. And you know, uh, he can like go into much more detail about that, but that'd be super fun to just kind of, explore that with him as well.
Cool. And also too, I need to get up with you because we need to do a Zoom for the Festy anyway.
Right.
Actually going to be kind of more of like the PR part of it. So I'll just make sure that Allenby knows about it. So Michael Allenby, you're invited to come on. He just had a baby. Um,
Right.
congratulations, Michael.
So good.
The baby.
Amazing. Amazing.
What else, dude? I don't know how long we've been talking, but I kind of feel like we're starting to come to
It,
the
it's about the like the hour mark. We're getting to it. So
dude.
is there anything else on that list of yours that we
No,
were going to
that was
cover?
it, Steve. I ended with guests, and I just I feel like we've gotten over the sophomore slump of our second episode, so now we don't know what we're doing yet, but still, it's
It's fun, feels good. In the spirit of the e-lab sort of mentality where, like that's the thing with startups and with creativity and all that stuff where you just like try stuff out and see if it feels good and see if people respond to it as well. Like, hey, that does feel good. And then if so, then great.
yeah. So big shout out to the people who've been watching. Most of them are friends and old everything fans, and so stay with us. We're going to be talking about a bunch of different stuff, obviously, over time, and this is really just an extension of the hangs that are going on. And just remember to be good to yourself out there in Radio Land. This isn't a radio show.
Nice. Dude, it's a radio mic though. When you
Radio,
get
it
up on
is
it like that, woo wee.
a radio mic like it's 1998.
Get get Deej up on here with one of these mics. Man,
Let's get Deej on here, man.
the voice.
The voice. We know some
Voice.
interesting people, Steve. We've had some great journeys, and I'm looking forward to exploring more because I feel like it's just one thing is going to lead to another.
Indeed. Indeed. And I'm really curious to see like this format feels really good. And so I'm really curious to see like where else we can take it, with guests and man, it would be so awesome if like we could pick up instruments and the latency wasn't a barrier, but all that stuff. Eventually the technology will work itself out and we will be able to do that. But yeah, all that.
And we forgot to tell everybody that we're calling these conversations the Everything Pocket or just the Pocket. I just really want to call it the Pocket, but I'm just not sure if there's another pocket out there.
There probably is, but once you put the E in pocket with the circle and the colon around it, boom, you can mess with
Does it become pocket, pocket, pocket? Is it
Yes.
pronounced differently?
Yeah, say it again.
It's a heavy E, pocket.
Pocket. It's
Pocket.
like there's a place in Thailand by that name, I believe.
Pocket. I don't know. I don't think we're winning this battle here.
We've
Yeah.
gone
So,
down a dark path.
dude, so very quickly, we got some shows coming up.
Boom.
Got a bunch of merch on the website. We got the Pocket. This is our second, week in a row. We got the E Lab. We got new songs coming. Like, we got a show in October at the Hamilton in DC. We're gonna try to do something this summer. Like, it's there's
what more can we do?
I don't know. Let's figure it out.
I mean, right?
Let's figure out
yeah, having fun.
Awesome. Well, Steven, I appreciate you, brother, and I will see you soon, my man.
All right.
Woo! Oh yeah, we got to do the stinger. Hang on.
Oh yeah.
You got to ready? You're listening to the Pocket.
Le Pocket.